Hey, what's up, nerdies? Welcome to a Nerdy Bunch review for Netflix film Rebel Ridge. My name's English Dave, and helping me keep my cool when I want to rage out from people who deserve it is my co-host, Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, David?
Like I said, we're here to talk about new Netflix original movie, Rebel Ridge, which is currently on Netflix right now.
Yes,
The
sir.
synopsis is as follows. An ex-Marine grapples his way through a web of small-town corruption when an attempt to post bail for his cousin escalates into a violent standoff. Andrew, I'll start with you. Had you heard about this film before? And spoiler-free, what did you feel after watching it?
So because I unfortunately watched Krypton, the show, shade, I knew Aaron Pierre, so I had seen a trailer and I was really excited to see him in his own movie because I think he was one of the better parts of Krypton. And luckily, I did not know the synopsis deeply, right? Like it was kind of like I skimmed the trailer. And I think this is definitely one of those movies that helped. Like not really knowing what the synopsis was just kind of made the tension feel that much better. So allow me to say I really enjoyed it. I think this is one of the definitely better / bester movies Netflix has put out. It's like a standard trope just with like a lot of nuances and just like really good acting and portrayals of like tense moments. I think really elevated this movie because the storyline wasn't anything too different from I don't know Reacher or the likes, right? Badass dude who has a past that ends up aligning with his present to give us a future film. So all I'm trying to say is I really enjoyed it. I think it was a great movie, even though it wasn't necessarily the most complicated or like plot twisty movie, right? But it had like proper elements that just made it. I think I'd like to see it in the cinemas, to be honest, right? And I guess that's high praise, more or less, for a movie. What about you?
This is a movie that I'd heard about. I didn't know too much about it because I'm somebody who, as soon as you say Netflix movie, I shut down straight away. I'm more about Netflix animation, as we spoke about. Check out our Terminator Zero review, which is up now. I think they do a fantastic job in animation. I'll give
Definitely.
any animation a chance, and some TV shows. But when it comes to movies, I'm usually like, when it comes to Netflix. And I had a lot of people telling me, no, you should check out this film, check it out. Aaron Pierce is an actor that I wouldn't say I've loved, but he's someone that I've been paying attention to. And so watching this film, my reaction is that I'm kind of opposite to you in the sense of I would have been more critical if this was a movie in the cinemas. But I think it's a good Netflix movie. It's a good streaming movie, I should say, in terms of streaming. Because I think, like you said, I think some of the story plot points are kind of like typical or cliche. I allow it at streaming. If it was
That's
cinema,
fair.
I would have been like paying more attention to that.
Give me more, man. Yeah.
More critical. In a good way, there's elements of it that remind me of like Rambo First Blood. Or that typical narrative, like you said, of this like lone person wandering into a small town that has problems and he gets involved in their problems, has to help them out.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a movie that I would go out of my way to say, tell everyone to watch it. I mean, if someone asks me, I've heard about this movie, should I watch it? I'll say yes. If someone says, what should I watch? I have a lot of other movies ahead of it in the line.
That's fair.
But saying all that, I will say this movie is a fantastic showcase for Aaron Pierre. From someone who I'm like, okay, peripherally, to like, okay, now I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
Now you have my attention. Any other reason for me to enjoy it is because I think this is a showcase for his potential future as a leading man in action films, in thrillers, in dramas to showcase. And I think, if you want to know what kind of actor he is, this is the movie that you see.
Yeah.
And honestly, as even for any critiques I have, I would see a sequel. And just to have him play this character again, you said, he kind of reminds me of Jack Reacher. He could play Jack Reacher in a sense, that kind of archetype. And I think, again, if there's any reason to watch this film, it's because of him. I think he carries the film. He has this kind of nuanced gravitas to him, but not because of his physicality. He also brings an intellectual side that works really well. This showcases that he needs more roles like this or similar,
100%.
And it would work. 100%. I definitely agree on that. Let's get into spoilers. one of the things I think the film does a very good job of, without kind of smacking in the face of it, is its race relations.
Uh-huh.
I think it's one of those, as a black man, or I think any person of color would understand. You get those moments where things are happening and you just want to just punch the mother in the face, but
Yep.
you have to stay calm and collected. And there's many moments in this film where every chance he gets, he's trying to de-escalate the situation,
Yeah.
even though he has the ability to just mess people up straight away. And we see that,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but it builds to that. What do you think of his character of Terry Richmond?
It was a good one. I like the whole, like, he had never really been in a fight, but
Mhm.
not because he can't throw hands, just because it's almost like buying a Rolls Royce and you say no, it's never been driven. Like, no, the car can drive. It's just it hasn't gotten dirty yet, right?
Yes.
Um, so it was good. Yeah, like you said, this was a great entry point for him as an actor, because I'm expecting to see him now just appear. I don't know. I envision a fight between him and Chris Hemsworth, or him
Mm.
and Henry
Yes.
Cavill. One of those
Yes.
level of movies, right? He could be a villain. He could be a good guy. He could appear in Marvel, DC. Like, I feel like opportunities are probably going to come a knocking, and I'm very curious to
Mhm.
see where it takes it from here. Because you hit the nail on the head. It was more than the action. I think that the few kind of complaints I've heard about this movie from some people was that they didn't like it, it wasn't as action heavy as they would like. Which, once,
I actually like that.
people are wrong, because this is similar to
Yeah.
Terminator Zero, right? Like, this is
Yep.
kind of a different thing going on here, because that's what made me enjoy this a little bit more. Like,
Mhm.
he and the movie kind of explained a lot more about, like, the legal system and, like, the police structure and, like, how things work, right? It's kind of nice to see that. And he's really just trying to bail his cousin, man. He's not trying to be too complicated, but, like, he was literally pushed into where he ended up, right? Like you feel that for him. So I thought he did a great job portraying that role, right? And, like, the whole idea of, like, I do not want to be violent, but if you make me
I
violent,
can.
I will. I will. The move with the shotgun, like,
But
uh,
even with that, right? Even if he wanted to be violent, I think there's, again, the subtext in it is him realizing he's a black man,
that's it.
and if he gets violent, it'll always be something against him. So he
A
has to
black
constantly
person.
be aware of self. And I think, you understand this as black people, you're always aware of self in certain situations, right? Constantly, some people, a white male doesn't have that privilege of
Mhm.
having to be aware of self in every given
Yeah.
moment. And I think there are moments where black men have to be aware of self, especially if you're like him. He's a big black guy, right? He's physically imposing. He's like, I don't know, six something. He's got muscles and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and
Stuff like that, like those things. That's the pop.
those things. And I think he's the character. He plays the character very well, where you see his rage inside, but he has to
Yeah.
contain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was showcased
Because
really,
you're
really
almost right
well.
on that point. Because I feel like almost like opposite a little bit to, like, Reacher, and, like, allow me to say it, more like a white male protagonist, where it's kind of like,
Mhm.
nah, I'm gonna punch him, actually. Whereas
Yeah,
this very much is the opposite, where it's like, I know I can't. Like, this would harm me more than it harms them.
yeah. Like, even like he'll give them many chances. He'll try, and even when he's just like, what, just give me enough of my money
Yeah.
to bail my cousin. You can keep the
Y-
rest. Any
Yeah.
chance he gets, he'll try and de-escalate the situation.
Yeah.
You know, and I did that was a great aspect to his character. Um, let's talk about, in terms of the plot. You talked about the plot briefly, and there was moments where it reminded me of Rebel, like I said. But I think some of my issue, and I think this is probably where some people have the issues with the action. I
Yeah.
can understand it. I think it needed to be a slightly tighter plot. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes it almost, like, I think the cousin plot and the town plot, yes, they're linked, but they feel like two movies, because once the cousin dies, it's like, oh, okay, that's the end of one movie.
Yeah, it needed
You
to
know,
be like they killed his cousin to cover up the
yeah,
final thing, and so, like, it got personal for him, because you're right. It
yeah,
was like, oh, his cousin's dead. All right, bye. But anyways, back to that. And all of a sudden, he cares about her, right? Like,
because that's the
not
thing.
his
Because even
cousin.
it's not really his cousin's death that causes him to kind of seek
uh-uh,
revenge, right?
uh-uh.
Because he's just like, I'm going to leave, and it's only when things happen to her, to Summer character, and
Yeah,
then she's like asking for
he's
help.
like,
That's
oh,
when
oh.
he's like,
He's like, nope, nope. That's the last straw. We killed my cousin. It was fine. It was fine. But
yeah.
this lady, this nice lady, you
Which you
messed
could
her.
almost, again, you could almost, I feel like there's another version of this film where you take out the cousin narrative, and he just gets pulled into his town's problem.
And, like,
You know,
purely from a racial standpoint, he was just
yeah,
on
yeah,
on his way doing his thing, and then
Yeah,
yeah, I hear that. I guess they were looking for like a reason for him to be so high pressed, but I almost hear you where it would almost have been more almost like what's the Denzel movie Equalizer,
yeah.
right? Like
Yes,
almost
yes,
kind of like that in a slight sense.
yes, 100% like that, where
Uh-huh.
it's like he's helping out other
Exactly.
people. And yes, there's some personal aspects to it, but it's more about him helping people who can't help themselves,
Yeah.
right? I really like the narrative of civil asset forfeiture.
Uh-huh.
You know,
I
this
just learned
narrative. I
about
think,
that.
yeah, exactly. It taught me something. It's a real thing. you know,
Be
you know,
careful out
and
there,
just
kids. Don't carry cat.
right. And I like that, and I think that could have been more the focus where maybe he was the one that got arrested for something similar,
Uh-huh.
right? As opposed to his cousin being arrested for
Uh-huh.
something similar. Yeah, I did like that because also, again, even with the undertones of racial profiling, it also plays the idea of undertones of people who just are going through situations, right? Going through bad things. It doesn't have to be because you're a black man or a person of
Yeah.
color. You know, even like Summer's character with the fact that because of her history with drugs, she can't be with her daughter, things like that. And this a town where people are so controlled by the power of the police that everyone's scared to say something, so everyone
Uh-huh.
kind of just falls in line.
Yeah.
And I really like the aspect of the narrative being about, well, what happens when you just allow things to happen, nobody speaks up. And it takes sometimes takes an outsider to kind of remind you of that. What do you think of the kind of power dynamics and corruption?
I think Don Johnson, that's Chief Sandy, also did a really good job. I guess for me, I don't want that to be understated. Part of what made this movie, successful was the acting as well, right? Especially when I guess the storyline isn't so dense, you really need the acting to
Mhm.
carry it. And I think yeah, both Chief Sandy, and then the two main officers, Evan and Steve. Like you said, there's so many times I literally wanted to punch someone, right? Like for them to elicit that feeling, I feel like that's a testament to the actors doing a great job.
Mhm.
So it really just helped, yeah, set the tone for like the corruption and like the racial thing, and just like the general sense of Chief Sandy believes he is the ruler of all. He's like the god of this little small enclave of his, right? Because he should have just taken, like, he got a great deal.
Mhm.
He should literally have just given him his 10K, kept 20K, and all would have been
Right.
well, right? I mean, not well for the world, but you know what I mean. But the fact that he got greedy, just the whole way it went. Then the female officer as well, the one who turned hero at the
Sims.
end, Sims, exactly, right? So just having her and even seeing her kind of like teeter on the edge between, I'm trying to do the right thing, but like, what's going on? And then I guess also knowing that it's a race thing as well, she really was kind of a cool character to see being on the side of like confusion a lot of times, because she's like, I'm a
Uh-huh,
police
uh-huh.
person, but what they're doing is wrong. And yeah, so I really like the supporting cast, just for what this movie was, and I think they all kind of did a good job in making each person feel like they were there for a reason, almost, if that makes sense.
But it did a good job of not making it wasn't like look, except for one officer, Steve, right? I feel like he was the only
That's
one that was like you could say is like straight up black and white bad guy,
Yeah.
right? Because
Because I
I
hated
think
Evan
even
at first. I literally I was
yeah,
wrong. I was like, oh, I hate him. And at the end, he turned out to kind of,
yeah,
help out. I was like, oh,
he was a
my
secret. He was a secret
bad.
guy. But even
Yeah.
Don Johnson's character, right? As much as he's doing bad things, in a way, he's also a victim of the system's failure,
Uh-huh.
right? Because he felt he's doing what he has to do to survive. Yes, he gets a
Uh-huh.
bit greedy on the way, right? He gets a bit
Uh-huh.
extra greedy on the way. But you can imagine that his narrative started off with him just like, "Our we're getting underfunded. Nobody cares,
Uh-huh.
and we need to do something to help,"
Something.
right?
Yeah.
He goes down a slippery slope of that something becoming bad for other people, and it kind of gets to his head. But it doesn't seem like he starts off with negative intentions because you
Um,
almost feel like he does genuinely feel bad when the cousin dies. Situations like that, and I found that interesting to kind of give the character layers, but rather as opposed to just him just being a straight up villain. You
yeah.
know,
Not just a dirty
E- e-
cop.
e- even with even with the judge played by James Cromwell, right? You feel like again he's doing these things because he's like, oh, this is what we have to do, but there's a
Uh-huh.
little bit of regret. He almost tries to kill himself by the end of it,
Yeah.
and it plays to that narrative of sometimes, yeah, doing nothing or looking the other way sometimes can be bad too. Oh, most times can be bad too.
Most times, yeah, right. Like aiding, they give you what a case for aiding and abetting a crime, but
Yeah,
somehow doing nothing is actually the same. It's it
yeah,
can really be
yeah,
aiding and abetting.
yeah. Because even at first, Summer doesn't want to help because she's like, "Oh, something can happen to me if I help." And again, you understand her perspective. She doesn't want to lose her child,
Uh-huh.
but at what point? And even her colleague, she's trying to work, ask for his help. It's like,
That yeah, and that was crazy messed up, man. Like they were injecting this lady.
what? Oof.
I was just like,
I was
what?
like,
I was like, no, you're not really doing that, are you?
though
Okay.
I have issues with Evan, right?
Yeah.
Plot wise, because you find out he is the secret person trying to help Summer. Because at
Yeah.
first you think it's Sims, the black cop, but you
Correct.
realize, oh shit, no, it's not. But then Evan was the one that knocked Terry down in the first place on his bike.
Yeah.
Deep wasn't even there until you called him in.
Right. Anyways, yeah. I don't know about that. That chalk that up to
But
the game.
the I was gonna say that might not necessarily be a plot hole. That could just be an explanation of you get, even if you're not quote unquote bad, you're around it for so long that you start doing,
You start to
your actions
do,
start acting there.
yeah.
Yeah,
You start to do bad things, but you're not
yeah,
bad.
exactly. I like the moment. That's two of my favorite moments. I love the moment where they're trying to figure out the acronyms for his job in the military.
I must say, I was pretty close. I was randomly guessing maybe because I lived in America, I'm used to them and all their lovely acronyms.
Yeah, of
But it was
course.
so cool especially I think that's one of those moments where if you're an experienced movie watcher, you could
Mhm.
kind of tell what was happening. But it's always nice to see, like even in animes, I love when like my favorite trope is like the hero who's so strong, what is like just being very chill, and then he all of a sudden reveals his power, and it's like, oh my gosh, whoa! So it's always so nice when people like, hey, who are you, little boy? Like, oh my gosh, no, Chief, get away from him.
Right.
So
And when he just
uh,
grabs the gun, it's like, no, just
yeah.
holds him, like the strength of just
Yeah,
holding the gun down. I was like,
that's why again, shout out Don Johnson, because like I feel like he portrayed that like even the fear in him being like, I know I'm seasoned, but like, yo, this dude. And like you said, and he
yeah.
still didn't even want to take all his money back. He was like, I'll still leave you with some, right? I understand this a little bit. I don't want you to chase me. I want this to end here. And they still didn't. They still had to.
And he goes, I kind of thought I was going to walk away. And I was like, nah. I was like,
Like that now.
and I think in terms of the action, yes, it takes a while to build the action. He's actively trying to avoid it. But I actually think that actually does a great job in when the action does come, giving it more impact.
Yeah.
And even then, he still has this kind of honest thing to him that he's not actually trying to kill anybody. He's just trying
Yeah.
to take them down. What did you think of his action?
It's just excellent, right? I think both the choreography, the fights, the timing
Yes.
of when he did what he did, breaking that guy's arm, and
Oof.
he emptied the shotgun. Everything he did felt powerful, right? Like again, like I've said, I see him now. This is so crazy, but I see him in a different world for Marvel fans as what's the guy in Thor? Billy something Ray.
Oh yeah.
What's his name, please? Sorry, help
Beta
me.
Ray, Beta Ray Bill.
Beta Ray Bill, right? Like he has
Yes.
that physique, just obviously
Mhm.
like, but like that's the level of power that I attribute to his martial moves, right? I feel like
Mhm.
one of the greatest ways to show, almost like in a Batman sense, like how to not use a
Yes.
gun to take someone down, right? Like all you gun totters, there's a way around it, right? The way the movie ended was climactically anticlimactic. That's the way I'm going to describe it. But I feel like
Yes.
the final action sequence, when Evans got shot and that whole hullabaloo, I thought that was a very enjoyable moment. I guess that was a slice of time when I said, oh, that's when I probably have loved a cinema movie if it was done differently. I hear you.
Yes.
Probably
Yes.
it
Yes.
probably does do better because it's a Netflix movie. But my
Yeah.
point is that action sequence was as good as almost any I've seen in movies that I've seen, and
Agreed.
at the theater. So yeah, kudos to them. I really enjoyed that. What
It's
about
funny you
you?
bring up. It's funny you bring up Batman. In prep for the new Penguin show, I rewatched the Batman yesterday, and
Good,
one of
great
the
show.
sequences I like is when towards the end when he's taking out all of Riddler's peeps, but again making sure they don't die. And
Yeah,
I get that sense of this character, right, where he's fighting with purpose,
Yeah.
right? It's not just to kill you or take you out. Wait,
Yeah.
no, he's disarming you, making sure you
Yeah.
can't pick up another gun, but
Yeah.
also making sure you can't come up behind him.
Yeah.
There's a purpose to everything he's doing.
100%.
And in a way, he'd also make a great Terminator.
That's
He's
a
got the
scary
physique
one.
and the scary, like even with his eyes and the physique of it, he could make a very scary Terminator because there's just a purpose to him. I'm going to do this and there's purpose, and you get in my way, I'm just going to move you. Yeah, I think he's very good at that. And I thought that was a great way to do that. You talk about the ending. I wish they had sold us more. Again, these are things that if you just made the narrative a bit tighter, on the idea that there were some cops who wanted to do better, it's just they were scared to.
Yeah,
I felt like
there was like similar to things.
Yeah, but it seems like just at the end, it's like, oh yeah, we'll help you. God, here's by the end of it,
was
like,
jarring.
Escort you.
It was
I was like,
slightly
what?
jarring, just slightly.
Where did suddenly now you have half the force who are good? Where did that come from? Yeah, I'm not saying it wouldn't exist. It can happen. It can happen. I just think we should have telegraphed that a bit more.
We didn't see that tension between the officers themselves, right? It felt like everybody was going with the plan. Everybody knew what to do.
At the very least, it seemed like everybody, no matter what, would always have the back of their chief.
Yeah, exactly.
And so to suddenly turn on the chief, I was like, what? What? That kind of, I think that was kind of like from left field for me. I like the idea of it. Don't get me wrong. I actually like the idea of it ending like that with them, with him not having to kill the chief, but his own people turning on him. I did like that as an idea. I just think he could have planted those seeds a bit more.
I think I agree.
Yeah. One of my moments I liked is when they were at the courthouse. Prior scene, she told him that he can't wear shorts to his court hearing. And in the second scene, she's like, you're still wearing shorts. Like, man. He's like, this is all I rock.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, this is giving Florida.
Right.
That's
hilarious. And I don't know why, for me, it was unintentionally hilarious in a scene where he's riding along on his bike side of the prison bus to pound his cousin, the fist bump. Because I thought more was happening.
That was some Olympic sprinting. And after the fist bump, I literally was like, wait, he didn't pass him like a knife or something like that.
That's what I thought.
That was just for the fist bump. I was like,
it was just for the fist bump.
Okay. Like, I mean, fair enough, I guess.
Fair enough. Okay. It was just built up to something. I thought we were going to get like an action sequence.
Yeah. No, it was because he really, really was riding like, wow. Like,
hard. Maybe like looking at the driver a certain type of way. I thought the drivers could try to run him off the road or something.
Or bring out a shotgun for nothing. But again, I think maybe that was what was semi-interesting about this movie, is that it really did kind of feel like normal but not normal, right? Like he was just trying to bail out his cousin, right? Like he literally did just want to give his cousin a fist bump like that. There was no spy shit, nothing spy related, nothing crazy. Like I just you my buddy, bro. And that was their last interaction, right? Like after that, cousin ended up dead. So maybe that's why they put it in the movie. But I agree. After it, I was just like, bro, save your strength.
And this is why I say it felt like two different movies, because even the narrative of, okay, the cousin, because of witness protection, ratted out on some people who deserved it, were in prison. Now he's got arrested. He's going to get it's just like, but that had nothing to do with the story we're watching now.
Nothing at all.
Again, you could have taken that completely out. And I don't know if you change the story too much and not just make it about guy.
Or woven it in more from me, right? Like, or at least like connected it to the chief. Like, the cousin was about to get, witness protection or, whatever. And then the chief made him go into Gen Pop. I don't know, something where it's like, this is I get you. This is the villain, even though that villain has depth. Let it not feel like, oh, cousin there. Oh, crazy cops here.
Well, because ultimately, again, his act of trying to take down the corruption didn't really feel like it felt to do with the cousin. It just felt more to do with helping someone.
Yeah, it was literally all about someone. He literally, no shade to the character because you like him, but he literally was like, "Oh, you killed my cousin? Okay, I'll leave. I mean, bye." Yeah." And then Summer calls help, and he's like, "What?"
And even the story, the narrative with the Chinese restaurant, I thought that would have more to it. Because it's interesting, seeing
like
as well.
Military doctor.
Yeah, exactly. I thought we were going to get this. But again, these are things that I allow more because it's a streaming movie. I think I would be more critical of it if it was a theatrical release. I paid money to go see it.
Fair.
Um,
That's fair.
but ultimately, actually, I enjoyed this film. It was a fun watch. Again, I'm usually very critical of Netflix movies. I would agree saying that this is amongst the better Netflix movies. And when I say that, I talk about the movies that Netflix aren't actively making to try and win Oscar
Yeah.
awards. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they don't. They have good movies, but it's usually the ones they're trying to get an award for,
For
as
sure.
opposed to just a regular standard film. I think in terms of standard films go, this is I would say this is up there with some of the better ones.
Yeah, like some of the visuals were really nice, and I don't know how to explain. Like it's such a, like, what's the word, mundane, I guess, like really like mundane things just like looking really really good. I was happy to watch the movie, and I feel like they could even have, if they wanted, added 20-30 minutes to kind of maybe weave in more of the things that we're complaining about, or even add in more action sequences. Like I didn't finish the movie and feel like, oh, thank God, which happened. There are movies that I've enjoyed too that I'm like, okay, please end. I'm begging you. But
Yes.
this didn't feel like that, and I guess that just means, again, for me, good movie. I'm curious about the characters. I would like to see where he goes from next. I literally see him as Black Reacher. I don't know how else to even say it.
No, I agree. I think this is a character that I would like to see again. I mean, this could be a TV show. I would like to see this as a character that he owns and becomes his.
Yeah, like we need to see him go up against people of his own caliber, right? Like,
yes,
okay, like we get it now, but okay, now let me see you see the Rocky.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. There's nobody outside of the only thing that can match him in this movie is the system. Right? There's no one that can
match. The entire system versus one man.
Right, because it's the only time he has to hold back is because he understands the system as a Black man, as a military man, that if he does certain things, they'll have ramifications, not because of the physicality, but because of the actual system itself. I love the moment where he gets tasered and he just gets mad. He's pulled.
that was actually great. Yeah, so many standout little moments like that. Summer storyline, I liked her as a character too. I guess just to give her some discussion.
Yes. Anna Sophia Robb. She's great.
Yeah, I think she did well. She felt like she was trying to help. She acted her drugged up scenes really well as well, right? Like I was actually like upset on her behalf, right? So I kind of get it on his viewpoint as well, though. I feel like he should have cared more for his cousin. I feel like, yeah, she was just like so nice, especially standing out against everybody else in that town being terrible. And so like he felt some sort of responsibility, and I felt that too. Each time I saw her like drugged, like when she was in the bathroom when he found her, right? Just I was like, yeah, bro, you gotta kill them all, kill them all.
Even little things with her narrative where it's introduced at first, she's like, I'll help, but not that much because of my job. And I was like, well, you see, that's the problem. You're going to help proper way. But then once you realize more and more of her story about her daughter and the fact that she would then you're like,
you actually are walking a tightrope. My bad.
Yes.
My bad. I thought you was one of them.
right. Because you do get people again who are just like, I want to help, but as long as it doesn't affect me, my job. But it's like, this is not necessarily, it wasn't about her job. It was about her daughter and seeing her daughter and knowing that obviously she has a history with drug use and she's trying her best to kind of get away from that. And man, when they injected her, I felt so bad.
It was so messed up. No, it literally, I felt all of his pain. I was like, I feel like they could have done other things. I wouldn't have cared, right? Like said she was dirty and stole money from the forest, and I'd be like, oh well, sorry, chalk it up to the game. It sucks. But like they literally injected her when they know that she's struggling with abuse and know that's gonna get her fired. Diabolical.
Right? Diabolical. There's like when the scene where the judge is like, okay, we're gonna do a drug test. I was like,
and then she was in the bathroom and she was just crying.
Right, because
that was really good acting.
Right. After all that time of refusing to go to the hospital, because if you went to hospital, they'd ask questions and they would say something. After all that, you still have to take the drug test. You're like,
and you feel not because you actually did it, but like you were set up. Nah, that's a terrible feeling. So yeah,
and who's gonna believe you?
No one. So fair enough to him for standing with her, because she'd have been screwed otherwise. And honestly, I dare I say I'd be surprised if there's no part 2 of this movie. I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that out there because it feels like one of those where they'll get even better return than they expected a little bit from it, and be like, oh, okay, well, and I see him and her, he's driving around America, making America great again.
Again, again, I could see this as a spin-off series.
Uh-huh.
Just have a longer narrative arc. And for those of you who didn't know, yes, Aaron Pierre is a British actor, one of the many British
My
actors
wife
playing
told me.
Americans. It surprised many Americans of the amount of Brits who are playing Americans on TV and movies. He's added to that list, and I think he does a great job with it as well. Especially when you hear his actual accent, it's not sometimes
that
it's like
far.
similar. It's like two different people.
Yeah.
So far off, you couldn't even imagine what he would sound like. I think that's everything.
Yeah, it wasn't really a complicated movie. It was just one of those solid watch. Enjoyed it with my wife. Not the edge of my seat, but I wasn't watching it to be an edge of my seat. But I definitely moved to the front of my seat on occasion.
Yes, and I didn't hate the fact that I watched it. Sometimes you watch a movie and it's like, what the hell did I just watch? Why? And it wasn't one of those movies. And I watched it, I was like, oh, that was entertaining. Again, even with any issues I had, it's not a movie I regret watching.
And you're probably right. There are issues that are excusable for a Netflix movie. Cinema movie, more scrutiny. But yeah, for sure, for just clicking play on my TV, I definitely had a good time.
Yeah. What did you nerdies think of this movie? What were your expectations going in? And how do you feel about it coming out? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Find us on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. Or you can email us at thenerdybunchpodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this review, please share with your friends. Depending what platform you're listening or watching this on, give us a thumbs up. It helps us get more awareness spread out over there to the ether of the internet. And like and subscribe and all that jazz. You know what to do. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you, Aaron.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch review for Netflix original movie Rebel Ridge, again streaming right now on Netflix. And as always, Andrew,
Keep it nerdy.
Peace out.